Cloud FPV. Lately, I've been getting a lot of hate for FPV on my YouTube. People even messaging me on my business email, mostly about when I do freestyle and have no visual observer. How do you deal with haters? Okay, so Cloud FPV, first of all, congratulations. When you are a small YouTuber, no one knows you exist, and you don't have haters. You also don't have anyone who watches your content. So you put the content out there, it gets 57 views, and you're like, okay. I mean, maybe you're like, yay, I got 57 views. But you don't have haters. Eventually, you get to a point where you become big enough that the haters start noticing you. So, congratulations, you have grown to a point where there are haters who notice you. That is a sign of success. Now, I don't mean that there are people who take that and they say, well, the more haters I've got, the better I'm doing. No, no, no. That's not don't go there, because that leads you down this really shitty road where you do shitty things just to stir people up. But the fact that you've got haters now when you didn't have haters before doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It just means that you're succeeding at getting big enough that now the haters have noticed you. So, okay. Number 2, never, 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 never put content in your video. I'm not a lawyer. This is my personal advice, though. Never put anything in your video that unequivocally shows that you're violating an FAA regulation. Now, another piece of advice I could give you would be to never violate FAA regulations. Fine. You have told me that people yell at you for flying without a spotter. Now, maybe you've got a spotter and maybe you don't. But personally, I would just not show myself on the video. I would do my flight. I would not really make it obvious where I was standing and where the line of sight might or might not be and whether I do or don't have a spotter. The more you leave that ambiguous, the less the haters will go, where's his spotter? They'll just be like, nice flight or shitty flight. So you can take steps to reduce the likelihood that people will accuse you of breaking the rules. And again, not that I'm encouraging you to break the rules. You should follow the rules. But maybe you had a spotter and they just were not obviously on camera. And now people are yelling at you and making a big stink. And then at the end of the day, what are you going to do? If you flew without a spotter, then you broke the rules. You knew you were breaking the rules at the time that you broke them. And then when people are like, yeah, you're breaking the rules. They're right. You broke the rules. So, if you're not okay, if you're not ready to take that heat, don't put you breaking the rules up on the internet. And here's the thing. Brandon Bean says, I reply to those comments with, I had a spotter, you can't see them. You got to be really careful about that. So if you are lying, let's presume for the sake of argument that you didn't have a spotter and now you are lying. And you are relying on the fact that you don't think you can get caught in the lie. Okay? You have to be very careful about making affirmative statements that you know to be untrue. Because when you make an affirmative statement, I had a spotter, you can't see them, you are committing yourself to that story. And if that story is not true, you have reduced your options for the future when you get a call from the FAA. So this is again, not legal advice. I am not a lawyer. I do think a lot about these things, though. A defense attorney will tell you, do not make any statements. Because as long as you have not made a statement, a whole lot of things could be true. And you haven't gotten caught telling a lie and impugned your credibility. As soon as you make a statement, you are now locking out all the other potential options. And you have reduced the potential to defend yourself in the future. So now when you get a call from the FAA, they're going to say, well, I see here that you said on your YouTube comments that you had a spotter. Where were they? Okay. Where were they? Oh, you didn't have a spotter, so you were lying. It's never good to reduce the potential ways that you could defend yourself against an attack. It is always good to keep all your options open as long as possible until forced to choose a path. At the strategic, like Sun Tzu, The Art of War, right? I don't know the exact quote, but you should choose the optimal response at the optimal time, and by locking yourself into a response early for no reason, there is no reason, there is no benefit in you lying to someone on the internet. Just don't answer them. Just ignore them. Or maybe make a vague statement like, well, like I sometimes say, all of my flights are in accordance with the law. And if anybody from the FAA wants to know more about that, they can contact me, but I'm not going to defend myself to somebody in the comments. A spotter cannot be using binoculars from a different location than the pilot. Spotter has to be co-located with the pilot per FAA.